Hello, welcome to Yapping Unfiltered, and today's episode is going to be my review and overview of episode 6 of Agatha All Along, which is all about teens' story, we should say. If you haven't seen the series, I recommend clicking off because we're going to go into spoiler alerts. I'm going to break down the entire episode. So, last warning. Okay, we know that teen is Billy Maximoff, aka Wiccan, aka Wanda's child. So, the episode starts off with a scene with teen Billy before he's Billy. His actual name is William Kaplan. I don't know if William's like a code name for something or if it's short for something, but his name is William. And he is Jewish. I think, I'm so sorry if I have this wrong, but it's sort of like he's having his like bar mitzvah. I think that's how you say bar mitzvah, where it's like when you're like coming of age for, I think it's for Hebrew. I think that's Jewish. I think that's Jewish. If I'm, yeah, because Billy Kaplan's Jewish. Yeah, he's Jewish. And so he's having this what should we call it? He's having this bar mitzvah, and his parents are there. I forgot to write down their names, but I recognize their actors. The mom was from Jane the Virgin, the lesbian one. You know, there's Raphael, and then there's a sister. The sister's the doctor who... Anywho, it's her, and she's from the mom from Shadowhunters. The dad, I recognize him from somewhere. Let me know in the comments what show they might be from, because I don't remember off the top of my head. I know for the mom, not for the dad. Anywho, so he's having his bar mitzvah, and they have this sort of thing on the side, which is where it's like this hut tent thing inside this like hall where he's having his like birthday, and there is Lilia the divination witch. Lilia the divination witch. It is her. So they knew each other. They sort of showed all the different witches except for Rio throughout this episode, which is really interesting. So we'll get into it. So Lilia's there, and she's sort of reading his palms, and she sees that at one point his like line fractures in two, and in his divination, if you like, so you know how you have the crystal ball, she sees the reflection of Billy Kaplan, Wiccan in the thing, in the orb thingy majiggy. In her orb, she sees Billy Kaplan, and she's like, "Oh, this man he go split. If you don't know, I'm not sure if this is the case, but William Kaplan is dead. At least that's what I'm assuming. But she sees this, and she tells him to enjoy the rest of his day, and she hands him this small like domino piece with something written on it. That's the sigil. So it's a small cube. That's a sigil. That sigil was given to him by Lilia, the divination witch. And that is why whenever he says his name, no other witch can hear him. But we'll get to that part later. Anywho, she gives him the sigil without him knowing, and he leaves. And after which point, so he goes back to the party. He's just sitting, he's enjoying, and there starts I'm not sure if you have next door neighbor, but like a bunch of notifications go off about the Westview hex coming down. So everyone's forced to leave and evacuate, and they're on their way back to their home. To go back to safety, and on their way there, we can sort of see the hex coming down in the background, and you sort of see William in the back and his parents in the front, and they're driving. And see, there's a truck that comes on the opposite side of the road that almost hits them, and so the mom swerves, and they like spin out, and they crash the backside. So, he hits his head. What's interesting is there was a theory that it was maybe Mephisto that was controlling the truck. I don't know. We still have 3 episodes left. 2 weeks, 3 episodes. So we'll have to wait and see what exactly that is, whether it's Mephisto, is it not Mephisto. But yeah, that was that theory, I don't think so. I think it's just for story purposes. But anywho, they hit the side. The mom wakes up, the dad wakes up, and William, not Billy, William's in the back. He's like unresponsive. He's like bleeding like a madman. And the scar that so if you weren't paying attention, Teen has a scar here where his eyebrows don't grow. That's because of the accident. Anywho, the dad runs off to sort of go find police officers because the police officers were rushing to Westview, and the mom was like, "Oh my God, wake up, wake up, Chrissy, wake up!" Anyway, so the mom was like that, and then all of a sudden you sort of hear in the background, William, so Billy and Tommy, as if you don't know, in WandaVision, when they're like dying, William and Tommy are like, "Good night, Billy, good night, Tommy." They're saying that to each other when they disappear. And when that happens, when that's about to happen, boy, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. So, while that's happening, you sort of hear the voice in the background, and Billy, William, who is now Billy, wakes up and he's like, "Tommy, good night, Tommy," because that's the last thing Billy says when he's in the hex. And now that he's in William's body, who is dead, he wakes up and he doesn't have any recollection. So, he doesn't have any recollection. At least that's what you're sort of perceived at that time, because they really don't elaborate whether he remembers or not. But then the cop that comes to help them is Alice. Alice, the protection witch who died last episode, is the cop that comes and sort of is like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So he goes to the hospital. He has amnesia. He doesn't remember anything. He doesn't remember when he was Billy. He doesn't remember when he was Tommy. He knows who Tommy is, and he sort of has a sense that who he is, but he has no recollection of anything in Westview. He doesn't remember anything of William, so he's like a fresh slate entirely. And he's sort of sitting there, and his parents come into the hospital, and he can sort of hear their thoughts. He can read their mind, like Wanda, and also kind of like Professor X, which is like, I don't think he had that in the comics, but I'm not upset. That's kind of cool. So anywho, he goes home. He doesn't remember anything, and he's sort of like, "Yeah, I'm like trying to remember," because he can't control his powers, right? So it's very much like on off. Like sometimes he can read minds, sometimes he doesn't. And then the dog doesn't recognize him, even though the body is William, but the soul is Billy. The dog recognizes that it's not the same person. It starts barking. It's like, "Bow, bow, bow." And it starts barking at him, and the dad's like, "Oh, it's whatever." But anyway, he goes upstairs, which I found interesting because there are plays that like dogs can recognize uncreated spirits. They can sort of like recognize souls that are no longer, present within the body, and they can detect a lot of other things, like natural disasters. I found that like an interesting play on that with, "You're not my owner, get out." But yeah, so at that point, there are 3 years have gone by. One thing I want to make note of is, we remember, if you guys remember, Agatha said people who play sigils don't remember them, which is why Lilia does not remember Billy. My thing is, I don't know why Alice doesn't. I guess maybe that's because it was maybe a 10-minute interaction. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I feel like she should have remembered him, but she didn't. So then, oh God, sorry. So it's 3 years. You see his boyfriend. I don't mean to be racist, but his black boyfriend. He's in the car. He's reading his mind. Anyway, it's like a small romantic scene, nothing important. But the interesting part is he decides to reveal everything to his boyfriend, and his boyfriend has a really weird, like creepy, like side hokey smile, which I don't trust. I'm getting trust issues. I don't know. Is that Mephisto? Is he hooking up with Mephisto? Because I don't think he's Hulkling. I don't think he's Hulkling. I think he's I want Kit Connor to be Hulkling, I think that might be too much to ask. They're in Heartstopper together, and then this, but it's also Marvel, and their characters just fit so well together, and them as actors, so fingers crossed. Kit Connor as Hulkling, please. Anywho. So then we go to his room. Well, attic room. And he's done research on everything. Like, who's Wanda? Westview? Who's Tommy? Like, everything. Who's Agatha Harkness? He does... Actually, no, not Agatha. We'll get to that. So he's doing this entire thing, and he's like... There's one person. Like, he's like, I've gone to Westview. I've tried to talk to people. I've tried to interview people. They don't want to talk about it. But there's one person on Reddit. Reddit! Again, iffy. But there's one person on Reddit. I think it might be Easter, but there's like a specific name for him. I don't know what it is, but anyway, beside the point. There's this one person on Reddit who's willing to talk to me. I'm gonna go talk to him. And his boyfriend's like, let me come with you. Let me come with you. So they go, there, and this guy in with a hat and with like a long ass coat walks in and is like, he's very hidden, and they're like, are you so and so? And he turns around and it's Ralph Boner. Evan Peters is back as Ralph Boner. Anywho, he says his real name is Randall. And he sort of talks about... So he asks him about Westview. And he's like, oh, it was the most traumatic shit of my life. Pretty much Wanda controlled unconsciously everything. You couldn't control your body. You couldn't decide what to speak, when to go to the bathroom, or do anything. That was all Wanda. Anything you did was in Wanda's control. She was like playing you like a puppet, which was like, we never really got that sort of revelation in WandaVision, which kind of irks me, because the fact that she did that unconsciously to so many people was just, yeah. Anywho, so he's like, oh, that's like, he has PTSD, like all grungy and shit, and he's like, oh my god, like he's in bad shape. He looks traumatized, like kooky eyes and like the whole thing, traumatized. It looked like he wished he was dead. It was bad. Anywho, he's like, oh, that's it. And then Wiccan teen reads his mind and says, don't ask me about Agatha. Don't ask me about Agatha. And then he asks about Agatha. And then he has this episode where he's like, oh my god, Agatha. And he sprays himself. And both of them. It was like anti-witch repellent. That's not a thing. Pretty sure that's not a thing. But that's how traumatized he is. So he pretty much reveals that Agatha took over him. So he was a part of Wanda's illusion. Then Agatha took over him, made him her husband, took over his house. The house that Agatha's in is actually Randall's house. He's like, as soon as the hex went down, I bolted. I got out of this. That shit. But then he sort of tells her that, Agatha made me her husband. She made me do things. Pretty much hijacked his house, stole his, he also mentioned that she stole her house, but she also mind controlled him. And one thing he said, which I don't remember WandaVision all that well, to be honest with you. It was like 3 years ago. But he said that she made him capture an old lady. Mrs. Hart. See, I don't know what old lady that's referring to, but I think that might be Sharon Davis. And I think the Sharon Davis we've seen so far is actually just Rio Vidal. I think that's the case. I could be wrong, but I think that that's the case. I'm going to be honest with you. Also, she indirectly killed Sparky. So you know how in the song she's like, and I killed Sparky too. That was actually Ralph. She made Ralph Boner poison the dog. Yep. Anywho, he tells him not to trust Agatha Harkness. So then he goes back home. He starts researching who is Agatha Harkness. There's nothing that shows up until he types in Agatha Harkness Ancient Witch, which I think is funny because that would definitely tell you about a real ancient witch. But in the background, that they show how he comes up with the plan. He's listening to the Witch's Road, Lorna Wu's version, like, if I can't reach you, let my song teach you. You know the one that broke the generational curse? That version, that song. He's listening to that, and then he's researching Agatha, and then there's a line that says, only, like, sole survivor of the Witch's Road, and then he hears the song, and he's like, wait, I can get what I want. And at this point, we don't know what it is. We'll get there. But pretty much, he develops this whole ass plan. You know, he drives to Westview that night. He sneaks into Agatha's house. And if you've seen episode 1, he sneaks in. He finds the Mother Maiden Crone locket. Then he drops it. And then he's running out of the house. She's chasing him. She captures him. They're back. And if you remember that there is a scene in the police station that went viral where she was like, when teen Wiccan, he said, I was trying to find the respect of your fellow peers, but I guess I didn't find anything. That never happened. That was all Agatha's hallucination. So the scene where they're like in the jail cell, she's imagining a lot of things, and Teen's just like, hey, so like you're Agatha Harkness, and like I like really want to get to know you. He's purposely being a fanboy to get close to her. And it's revealed that a lot of the stuff that she was thinking was not happening. Like, obviously. But there's this, you know, like, on front of a hose, there's, like, the spray thing to make a spray. She's holding that as a gun. So she's, like, cuckoo crazy. Anywho, a lot of the stuff that was sort of happening to, like, we saw with Teen in the first 2 episodes, until she was broken out of the spell, wasn't the case. That wasn't true. What I've also find interesting is Rio was nowhere to be seen. I mean, obviously Rio was there, but I was under the impression that, you know, Rio helped her break out of. I thought Teen helped her, but no, she was breaking out of the spell already. So Rio pretty much did the groundwork. She was like, remember who you are, like remember. And then Teen says the spell where it's like whatever he says, you know. And then that is where Agatha's like starts snapping back. And then she's like, you know what, I'm gonna put you in my closet. And he's like, don't put me back. That was funny. But on the way, as he's chanting it, you know, the spell breaks halfway. And whatchamacallit? The pendant drops. So he was trying to break her out of it. So I think the spell that he was casting was not done. And I think it had some consequences. Which is why I think something went off with the spell, and the Salem 7 are after them because of that. It might be that, or it might just be that that's how Rio. There's definitely some foreshadow about that spell. Because as she's pushing him into the closet, there's a specific scene where the pendant drops on the floor. I don't know why that is. I do think it's because it's gonna play some significant part of the story. Whether it be that the spell wasn't like fully done, like she's still partially hallucinating, or whether that because of that spell, she's now discoverable by other people. I don't know. It could be either thing, to be honest. Anywho. So the spell breaks, and it's sort of I'm like reading my notes. But yeah, so pretty much it's the same thing. We see the sort of rendition of things, like them collecting the coven, them working together. Another thing that they show from another POV is also, yeah, 2 things. While they're showing the recap of everything that's happened up until the Witch's Road to sort of see Teen's perspective, when the sigil appears, it's not for him. He says, I am William Kaplan. And Agatha's like, huh. And then he says, I am Billy Maximoff. But for her, it's the sigil. That was Lilia's doing. They also show Jennifer, but it's like a 1-second scene on YouTube. So, yeah. They show all the witches foreshadowing something, I'm presuming. And then they're showing yada yada yada, everything that happened, like a very like brief, quick, now you're up to speed to where we are. And we see Billy's like in on the witch's road. I thought the witch's road maybe might have been like he put a spell on everyone and they're not on the witch's road. That was too crazy to believe. But you never know. Because there is a scene where he's drawing a pentagram and he's doing something to the witch's door's entrance. Whether that be he's trapping the witches, like the Salem 7 there, or whether he's opening it up again by himself to get Agatha. I don't know. It could be anything. I don't know. We'll have to get to that. But there is a scene in the trailers where he's drawing a pentagram, whatever that means. But yeah, this episode wasn't long. It was a lot of stuff happened. So anyway, we're back in present time after the last episode, and Agatha's like climbing her way up, and she's like, eh. Oh, she's like, you know, and then she sort of sees him in the background, and she's like, they have this exchange. I won't go too much into detail because I recommend you watch this episode. It's really good. Like the lore, the build up and everything is amazing. But anyway, she is very happy to see him. I do think at a very deep level, she cares for Billy. Truly. I think she really cares for him. Obviously, she doesn't have Nicholas Scratch. So, he's going to be the closest thing she has to a son. So, I think the relation they're trying to be is like, Wanda is gone, so Agatha's going to be the one to teach him magic and to sort of be like the motherly figure, the witch motherly figure for him in his life as she was when they were growing up, and sort of have that connection, you know. Technically, he has two mommies, I think, or they might do like part of Nicholas Scratch's, and I don't know. We'll see what they do. But anyway, she's happy to see him, and then she asks him, she's like, how did you get that body? Because she had a suspicion for quite some time that it was Billy, that he was Billy Maximoff. She said something about the way you like flick your eyes or something with your mouth. But she's like, how did you get the body? And he sort of like shames himself because in a way he stole a dead body, which is kind of messed up, you know. But she like gets this like very sad and very like, no, you like that's okay, like, you know, that's fine. You don't have to tell me, but don't be upset for your powers. You did what you did to survive, and that's perfectly fine. Which is, again, why I think that Agatha is going to be his mentor. I think this is leading to either Agatha's going to sacrifice herself, maybe her magic, to save Teen, to help him become stronger, to defeat Rio, to maybe push back Mephisto, fight off the Salem 7, or she's going to become that old witchy mentor as she was supposed to be. Oh my god, wait. In the comics, Agatha's an old witch who mentors Wanda. I think instead, she's going to be the witch that mentors mentors Billy. She's going to mentor Wiccan, and then Wanda comes back and he's going to be like, Agatha's teaching me. She's going to be like, what the and then Agatha's going to be like, hey girl, I helped your kid. Suck on that, you know? But yeah, and then Agatha is very curious, what does Billy Kaplan want? And she's like, you don't need power. You have that taken care of. You're Maximoff, you know, you're good, you're set. You're chilling, you're good. Then she sort of goes on like this 3-part tangent, which is really funny. She's like, what do you want? You want Mommy Wanda? No. I don't think you do. Because she ditched you guys for a whole town. You don't want Wanda. Do you want Robo Papa? Which was funny as shit. Do you want Robo Papa? I don't know. You know, he might be in pieces. He might be all over the place. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Obviously, if you guys don't know, they're making Vision Quest, which is like a show about Vision, which is, I think how it's gonna go is, Agatha All Along, we got introduced to Wiccan, Billy Maximoff. Then I don't know Tommy's like pseudo name or like the body he took over, but I think Vision Quest is going to be Viv Vision, which is like a female baby Vision, like a small counterpart of Vision. That going to be their stepsister, kind of. I think they might do that, but definitely Tommy. Then they're going to do Young Avengers, and if you don't know, like, the first Young Avengers comic, I think it's the Children's Crusade, is about finding Wanda Maximoff. They don't know that they're related, But the movie is about getting Wanda, and I think it might be Wanda comes back, Chthon or Mephisto is evil, solo Scarlet Witch movie with her kids, and then another Young Avengers. That's how I think they're gonna go. Anywho, she reveals you want Tommy, you want your brother, and then, Billy has this whole episode of like, you know, and then this was so funny. She was like, God, Agatha, she was like, God, you Maximoffs are so dramatic. Things would be so simple if you weren't as dramatic. And I was like, true. But then it's the two of them going to the next trial. If you've seen the trailers, you know Lilia and Jen are in the ground below. They're gonna come up. There is a scene for, I think episode 7 is going to be Lilia's trial. Episode 8 and 9, the finale on 30th. So I think the way next episode's gonna play out is they're all gonna eventually catch up with one another. If you don't know Lilia's trial, Lilia is Glinda, Agatha is the evil witch. It's like play of evil witches. I think Jennifer is the Snow White witch, like the Hunchback one. And Joe Locke's character, Billy, not Teen, Billy Maximoff, is going to be Maleficent. So I think that's going to happen there. And then I think Lilia's going to die. Episode 8 and 9, the finale. We know we're getting an Agatha versus Rio fight. And I think they're purposely not showing a lot of things because there is a major scene with Wiccan. And I don't think they're just going to be like, oh, he's Billy and that's it. I think he's going to help fight Rio in some way, shape, or form. Or at least he might get a comics accurate costume like Wanda did at the end of Scarlet Witch, like at the end of WandaVision. He's gonna be like, I'm Wiccan, and then bam, screw shit up. But anywho, I would give this episode an 8 out of 10. Great episode. I think it was a little bit slow and a lot of the stuff we'd already pieced together, so I think it was just a little bit too redundant, a little bit too like, I wish there was more of after that last episode scene and less pre-build up, because I was like, we already know this stuff for the most part. Ralph Boner was a nice addition. Season as a whole, still 9 out of 10, phenomenal. This is so different from anything Marvel has done recently, which makes it so exciting. But yeah, at the end of this, like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed it, the usual. And then if you're interested in my other reviews, they should probably show up here as a playlist, or check out another video, which should be based off of your best video here. Yeah. Peace.